What's up, guys? So I got another video for you here today. These are the Doyle pivot vises from Harbor Freight. I was at Harbor Freight maybe a year ago, and these caught my eye. I said, that's actually a pretty good design. And these Doyle vises, the build quality is much better than they're kind of like lower grade brand. And you see the head here pivots, and you have a 5-inch jaw, you have a pipe jaw, and then you have a jaw on the bottom that's for doing like disc style work or like, rounds, short rounds. So I figured, this might be a good bet in the shop. So I was thinking about it, wanted to check and see what the whole location was and if it would line up with a fixture table, because now everything I do, I want to be on a 2-inch grid pattern. Because now I could take these, if they were, I could take them to whatever different, my fab table, my Langmuir tables. There's so many fixture plates in my shop, so I could transport these and mount them and not have to really, it's real quick change tooling. So I was there, and these are zip tied to a rack, but I got underneath and I measured the distance on these holes, and lo and behold, they were actually built on a nominal spacing. So they're 8-inch and then 4-inch off center. The holes are not 5/8, but it looked like it was going to line up. So I picked these up, and I've already done this off camera. I opened up these holes to 5/8, and they just line up perfect. And the thickness on these castings is also 5/8. This tabletop is 5/8. My Build Pro Alpha is 12 millimeters, and all the ball lock hardware is set for either 5/8 to 12 millimeters or 12 millimeters to 12 millimeters. But I found that Fireball Tool has a set of ball locks that are adjustable. So I picked up a set of those so I can actually use ball lock hardware on here, because I want to be able to take these vises on and off. So that was a huge selling point to me, that I could pick these up, do some modification to the actual base, and get them to work. And as they are, they're actually pretty well made. One other thing I noticed when I was there, it looked like there was going to be enough room in the casting and the back of the screw to add a radial bearing. So that's one of the modifications I'm going to make. I'm going to put radial bearings in this, and I'm going to do this in like a 4 or 5 part series, where this is the introduction video, and then I'll go in and do my modifications, and those will be individual videos. It's just way too much work to compress that into one long video. So on my Wilton Tradesman next to us here, one thing, I had that vise on a bench before, and if you keep your tools next to you, I found it had this old pedestal, and I kind of restored it and painted it, paint matched it, and I love the way it looks. It's just that there's nowhere to put your tools when you're working. Like, where do you put your hammer or your wrenches? So that kind of bothered me. But what I did on this vise is I put the copper jaws on there, and those have been on there for like 10 years. They're a little mangled up, but they're totally fine. So I'm definitely going to do that mod to these vises. That's like #1 thing. I think a vise has to have copper jaws. Then it turns the vise, instead of the hard jaws on the vise, the work becomes the hard jaw, and the vises then the soft jaw. So they just grab, I think, even better than aluminum. So that's the first mod I want to do, is the copper vise jaws. And then these handles, also not terrible, has a little ball on the end. But what I did on the Wilton is I put a 1 3/8 ball, and I did a ball detent in the actual handle. So then it'll locate back to center, and I absolutely love that modification. It turns it into like a speed vise. So that's on the list, and I'm going to keep these the same size on the length. This is a 1/2 inch diameter. These holes are like, there's maybe just too much play here. I think I measured them at like 540 or 540, somewhere in that range. So I actually got some A2 tool steel that's 17/32. That's really the only hard material or tough material I could find in that 17/32 diameter. So it'll take up some of the play. I'll add the ball detent to the end and put the larger handles on here, but keep these the same length. And then I plan to do the copper jaws, which I mentioned, and I want to do pins in those jaws like I run on my mill. The pin jaws, really versatile for holding odd shaped parts. Very happy with those. So that's the first 2 mods. And then I want to do, I've already 3D printed some of these parts. There's the vise jaws. I want to make those in copper as well, because they come with hard jaws with serration in them. I'll keep those around, but I don't think I'm ever really going to use those. That's for really digging into pipe. But, with the copper, it seems to have the same hold and doesn't damage the part. So I'm doing a lot of delicate pieces, copper and brass. So I want to have like soft jaws or ways to hold work where I'm not actually like destroying the work or damaging it. So that's the next thing. And then on the back side, it has, well, I already took these ones off, but I'll flip this one around. These are like plate jaws for holding disc shape. So I have material in copper that's this dimension. I want to remake those in copper as well. And then I have an idea for doing these taper holding jaws. There's, I think, the emirate vises. Some guys on YouTube have showed those where there's 2 pins on there and you put these pivot style holders, jaws, so you can hold tapers. So I'm pull these off. You know, this will all be kind of quick change. Just pull off the V pads here and put on these tapered jaws. Sometimes you got to hold tapered parts. I do a lot of, well, I've done a few tapered guardrail posts. And sometimes you're working on those or chasing threads or doing assembly. It'd be nice to have a spot to actually hold that, because it's really hard to hold a tapered part traditionally. Like it doesn't seem to work out that well. So I'm going to make a few different sets of these flat, one with a 60-degree groove, 90-degree groove, and 150, just to be able to hold different ranges. And since I'm making them one set, well, I'm already set up, I might as well just make a few different styles. So that was kind of my plan for the jaws and the handle. The next thing I want to do to these, pivot this back around, is I'm going to add, I mentioned putting radial bearings in here, be doing that. And then this detent setup, it's not bad. How it works is that you rotate it, you pull the pin, there's 12 positions, so 30 degrees, which is really nice for doing work holding and different positions for assembly or polishing, blending work. But what I'd like to do is rework that detent a little bit. The play in it, it's not great. It doesn't totally bother me, but I'd kind of rather it was snap into place and these don't pivot, because once this is tightened, this takes up the slop, so they won't pivot then afterwards. So I got an idea to kind of put a tapered hole in there, kind of like how a positioner works, or a 5C indexing head works. So I kind of want to play around with that and see where it takes me. And the best part about these vises are so cheap. Let's say something goes terribly wrong. Well, I paid $130 each for these, so it's like, it's not that big a deal. I could replace the vise and not and not be too upset about it. So, and then also on the stand, like I said, I made this height adjustable and added a shelf here. I'm gonna bolt this to the ground, but already it feels pretty stable. So once I do get it bolted down, if it does have more play than I want, I thought I could actually make an attachment from the table to this post that's adjustable on a track, so I can tie it to the post and to the ground if it does bother me. Like I said, so far it feels pretty good. Another option is you can go from this 1 1/4 to 1 inch Schedule 40 galvanized pipe to a 2 inch Schedule 80 to 1 1/2, and it has the same fit on the telescoping. So that would be very robust. But these legs aren't bad. This is like a 1 11/16 on the 1 1/4. That's the OD, and it has like 140 thou wall thickness. So they're pretty robust. And then the bottom is like 1 5/16 OD, the 1 inch pipe, with like a 135 thou or 130 wall thickness. So I think it's going to be okay. And considering I actually put this bottom shelf lower, I'm still going to add plywood to these. This is so I can actually have enough room to take these vises off and put them somewhere, because where would they go if I want to use this for something else? But we'll see how that goes. So I made this go from, I believe it goes down to 24, because these vises are pretty tall. They're like 11 tall. So if it goes to 24, you know, that's at like 35, 36 if it's all the way down. Having these at 42, that's where like that vise is at. That's where I keep my downdraft at. It just is a real comfortable working height. So my plan is to mostly keep it at 42, but there are projects where, hey, it'd be real nice if that was lower, or maybe I want them higher. So the stand goes from 24 to 36, or really it goes to 42, but I think that's probably too high and has too much wiggle in it. But if I wanted to use this for something else, these vises are got the quick change ball locks, pull them off. Maybe I need to do something up here. So it's nice to have that range. And since you're doing the telescoping stands, you know, you got that extra meat there anyway. So in case there's a situation where I want it up higher, I can do that. So anyways, that's going to be the intro for these Doyle pivot vises. And stay tuned. Like I said, it's going to be a multi-part series. In the end, I would like to paint these. The red just kind of clashes with some of the theme I have going in here. In my shop, I have like everything is either blue or kind of teal or gray kind of thing. So I try not to introduce anything that's kind of contrast, like red, yellow. Kind of try to keep everything blue if I can. But we'll see. Since I'm tearing into these, it's easy enough to put a coat of paint on them, and then it just makes it a little bit more in theme with my shop. Like I have a Doyle, no, a Bauer drill press from Harbor Freight. It's a great unit for the money, especially. But it had this red color, and it just kind of clashed with all the equipment in the area. So all I did is just rattle canned it this hammered blue, and it blends in. It just you don't notice it as much. So, anyways, stay tuned and see the rest of the build on these Doyle pivot vises.